And welcome to the final quarter on the CBS 8 app. Just the two handsome guys today. No Karthik Venkatraman, John Howard, Jake Garriani. John Howard, how are we feeling today? How are you feeling about those San Diego Padres, baby?
I'm optimistic, and the biggest reason why is they had a homestand that started 1-4. Was that they started 1-4, and now they're 6-6 after today's game. And so when you look at how bad things could be, they're actually looking pretty good, sitting at 6-6, coming back for another homestand now, and so I'm optimistic. Jake, I am a glass half full type of guy.
Oh, you are now. That's good to know. I'm learning this now 10 years into our working career together. I think when you think about the San Diego Padres, it's a microcosm, really, John, I think, for what a baseball season is. And I don't say that meaning the Padres are going to go 500, but what I mean is there's lots of ups and downs, right? We got the taste of both of the ups and the downs in just this short 12-game sample size. Yeah, were the two home series really ugly, and were there some big-time negatives? Absolutely. Then you go on the road and you start to see some great positives. I thought Michael King has looked really good. I thought Randy Vasquez has looked really good. You got those bounce backs from Nick Pivetta. You're starting to see some production out of Nick Castellanos and other things. So while I think there was a lot of doom and gloom early in this season, it feels like, hey, maybe it's settled down a bit. People have calmed down a little bit. And now you're starting to see the ups and downs of a regular season.
Absolutely. And on the flip side of the pitchers, you've got an offense that is actually making more contact and scoring more runs now on this road trip, which they were not doing at home. I mean, for Pete's sake, at home, they were going into that final home game of the series. They were averaging 1.8 runs per game. So it's nice to see the offense starting to come alive a little bit. And of what will always be a conversation of interest as we continue through the season is the performance of the new manager, the rookie manager, Craig Stammen. Has he made decisions that has cost the team games? I don't think so. Although just the other day when the wheels popped off in the Paul Skeens game with the Pittsburgh Pirates, and it was 2-1 in favor of the Pirates, and then the wheels fell off when Adrian Morejon came on and gave up 4 earned runs on 5 hits in a span of 6 batters. I don't know if Craig is supposed to yank Morejon before he gives up that much offense to the opponent, especially when you're in a tight game late that started Paul Skeens. That's a game you really want to win if you can, but things really got ugly there at the end of the game.
Yeah, and I think when you're talking about a rookie manager and a rookie manager that's had no experience before, a lot of people are going to question a lot of moves. I think some things that I've liked that have been positive with Craig Stammen are the fact that he's willing to switch things up. He's willing to change the lineup, do things differently, not be so stubborn like maybe we've seen in the past. He's also been really willing to do a lot of the stuff that I think we don't hear about, the delegating, the, hey, I'm going to work here or work there with this guy. And I think the criticism he took early on in this season was a lot of him being a rookie manager, a lot of things not going well early on. And now that certain things start to smooth out, I think you're starting to see things with Craig Stammen that, all right, it does make sense why he can be a manager in the big leagues. And I think you're working with a guy that's learning a lot as well as they go. And you mentioned the offense, John. When you talk about such a small sample size, and within that small sample size, you are facing the American League Cy Young Award winner in Tarek Skubal, and then a great lefty in Framber Valdez, and a guy like Mitch Keller, who they saw in that series finale against Pittsburgh, and then, the NL Cy Young Award winner in Paul Skeens. Sure, there are going to be moments where this offense doesn't look like absolute world beaters. Now, are there things that concern me still? Yeah. To me, Fernando Tatis Jr. still looks just as lost as he did a season ago at the plate. Would I like to see Manny ripping the cover off the ball a little bit more? Yeah, absolutely. He's had really one good swing in Fenway all year long. So I think two things can be very true at once. You can have concerns, but you can also go, yeah, there's going to be ups and downs, and now this team's starting to find a bit of a rhythm.
One thing, you bring up Fernando Tatis Jr., and when you think about how the fact he just looks lost, I think he's got one solid hit this season, it makes me question what was he doing in the offseason. And, Tony Gwynn, when he was here, set a standard. And Tony, I remember every first week of January, I could go down to Qualcomm Stadium, wouldn't even have to call him ahead of time and say, hey, can I come down and get a quick interview with you? I just knew he was going to be down there mid-morning hitting balls off the tee in the indoor cage at Qualcomm Stadium. And I remember a piece of what we call natural sound, Jake, of a story we were shooting down there. And as he put the first ball on the tee, he said, "This is what a lot of guys don't want to do." And then he just starts hitting balls repetitively off the tee. So when these major league players start the season slow, and this is the second year in a row that Fernando has started slow.
Yeah, very slow. Yeah.
I'm thinking he's not putting in the work that Tony Gwynn was willing to put in back in the day. Are they just showing up to spring training and they're letting the MLB season get themselves warmed up? Here it comes, Jake. If you want to do that, go down to AAA and find your swing. And after the first month of the AAA season, when you're finally batting 320 or 330 at the AAA level, then we'll bring you back up. But as a Major League Baseball fan, I don't feel like sitting around watching these star players bat 220 until they find their swing a month into the season.
I tell you what, it's a hell of a take, John. It's a hell of a take. I find it very hard to believe that these guys are just not doing anything in the offseason and they're not preparing themselves. And Fernando Tatis Jr. in particular, without me following him around all offseason, I'm sure is trying to get himself prepared. We talked to him a bunch in the offseason, with spring training leading up to this. He felt mentally in the right place. He felt physically in the right place. So it is a bit disappointing to see this slow start for him at the plate. But I do find it hard to believe that he's just sitting around not doing anything in the offseason. I'm sure these guys are getting prepared. But like I mentioned, they're facing some incredible pitching. With that being said, I'm not just going to sit here and defend him. I'm the one that brought up that I said I think he does look lost at the plate to begin this year. Hopefully something can click for Fernando Tatis Jr. Here's a look at what the Padres have coming up with their schedule. They got coming back home here, 4 against the Rockies. Then they'll have an off day. Then they got 3 at home against the Mariners before hitting the road again. All things considered, John, though, it's a 4-2 road trip like we mentioned at the beginning. I think everyone's kind of calmed down just a touch.
I didn't want to infer that Fernando was sitting around scratching his rear end all offseason, but there's a possibility that's the case. And as we look at the schedule, these Rockies coming in for 4, I think right now they were winning the game.
They're playing better baseball.
They're playing better baseball. And they're going to come in probably with a 6-6 record, same record the Padres have. Last year, if I'm not mistaken, the Padres went 10-3 or something like that, or 13-3 against the Rockies. The Rockies were just the doormats of the division. And suddenly they're playing about the same level of baseball as the Padres are. So it'll be very intriguing to see what they do. And then the Mariners coming in a little bit later. The old spring training. What do you call it?
The
rivals,
housemates,
the spring training housemates, rivals.
The Vetter Cup is what we're calling it these days.
The Vetter Cup, and that's always fun to see the Vetter Cup coming in. The Mariners will probably be a pretty good ball club, better than we would expect out of the Rockies. But the Rockies, don't look past them. They've been playing 500 ball coming in.
And you look at that game on the 11th. That's a Saturday game. John and I will be excited to bring you this. Check it out.
Baseball is back in San Diego, and the Padres are back on CBS 8. Spend your Saturday with the Friars as Manny Machado and company look to climb past Colorado. Padres, Rockies. Coverage begins at 4, Saturday on CBS 8.
Yeah, baby. Coverage begins at 4 Saturday, CBS 8. John will be in-house. I'll be down there at Petco Park. We got an hour-long pregame show. We have the game for free on CBS 8 and then a postgame show. So looking forward to bringing you all of that. Now, before we move off baseball, John, I got to ask you about a guy that you being someone who grew up in L.A. probably had your eyeballs on this guy, but we lose Davey Lopes. At 80 years old, we find out today, a loss for the baseball community. This is a guy who's a longtime Dodger, coach for the Padres. Just whatever you'd like to say about Davey Lopes, I kind of want to give you the floor for a bit.
Well, he's a guy that reminds me of my childhood. Growing up, what's interesting about growing up in L.A., yes, I was a Dodgers fan, but my best friend was a Reds fan, and he put me on the Big Red Machine wagon. But when it came to playing wiffle ball in my yard, I knew that Dodger lineup memorized top to bottom, and Davey Lopes was right up there at the top. Before Ricky Henderson came in, Davey Lopes was the premier leadoff hitter in Major League Baseball. He could get on base. He could steal bases, just rock solid. And when I first started working here in San Diego in 1997, Davey Lopes was the first base coach for the Padres. And it was really interesting when you have these fans that you if you idolize or look up to and you see them playing, it was one of those, surreal moments when I got to meet Davey Lopes for the first time, because he was just a guy I watched playing growing up. And so, yes, and now those players from that era, they're hitting their 80s and beyond, and it's sad to see Davey Lopes go. He was, from my recall of him as an assistant coach with the Padres, more stern and quiet. Whereas a Dave Stewart, who was from the Oakland A's, the pitcher, and was also a pitching instructor for the Padres, he was this really intimidating looking guy, Dave Stewart was, but kind of a high talker and was the friendliest guy you'd ever want to know. So it was totally cool to meet Davey Lopes, one of my childhood heroes, if you will, who played in L.A. growing up and was just a great leadoff hitter and part of that infield of Say, Lopes, Garvey, and Russell that just was, implanted in L.A., which I wish we saw more of these days. I'd love to see more outfield stay solid for 5 or 6 or 7 years. You just don't see it anymore. But it was great watching those 4 guys play infield for the Dodgers all those years.
Yeah, they were their infield for almost like a decade straight. It was like 9 seasons or something, which you just won't ever see that again. It's just not going to happen the way that baseball is. But, I talked to a couple people about Davey, and you hear people on the radio driving in today, and just it feels like baseball shares that sentiment about Davey. It wasn't, hey, this is a Dodger, and we don't like him because he was a Dodger. It was just like, this guy was the quintessential leadoff hitter before Ricky, like you mentioned, and he was just so much fun to watch, and he respected the game. So definitely, like I mentioned at the top, a tough loss for the baseball community as Davey Lopes has passed away at the age of 80. And we will now move on talking about a little bit of basketball. We have champions crowned. We know who has won March Madness on both the men's and the women's side. On the men's side, it might be one of the most dominant basketball teams in the history of men's college basketball. Michigan Wolverines, they go 37-3, John. They win every single game in the NCAA tournament. They put up at least 90 points, except that national championship game against UConn, which they ended up winning by 6. To me, the national championship game, John, felt like UConn did a lot to hang around. They fought their tails off. They were well coached by Danny Hurley. But because this Michigan team was so dominant, I really never felt that UConn threatened like they were going to win the national championship. It felt like they had to give their everything to even be in that game.
You're absolutely right. I mean, Michigan finally they led most of this game. They led 85% of the game, I believe is what it was. And I think one of the stats that got overshadowed in this particular game was Michigan was 25 of 28 from the free throw line. And when you're an opponent, you're very quietly getting put to death 1 point at a time, but you don't realize that's happening, but it's preventing you from catching up. And at one point they had 18 consecutive free throws. And my old high school coach used to say, we are going to do little things to win big ball games. And that's exactly what Michigan did there when it comes to shooting the free throws. They were awful from long range. They only made 2 3-pointers in the entire game. Jake, you talked about them being one of the most dominant teams in history. I think back on the Bobby Knight Indiana team. Was that 1976 when undefeated?
Right.
And then the 1990 UNLV running Rebels team. There was Phi Slamma Jamma. There's some great teams out there.
UCLA had some incredible runs, right? With Wooden.
With Lou Alcindor and Bill Walton. You can't say that they're the most dominant, but they probably do belong in that conversation. Very entertaining. Unfortunately, my Aztecs, who I love and who are near and dear to my heart, played them in Vegas. I was at that game in Vegas and lost to this Michigan team by 40. And I got to tell you, I had forgotten what it was like to lose by a big margin, much less 40 points. So this Michigan team, well-deserved and played very well there in that championship game in regards to just keeping their opponent at bay.
Yeah, and it was funny. Karthik and I watched this game together, and we both sat there at halftime and goes, it's amazing Michigan didn't even play that good of a half. It felt like UConn did everything they could, and Michigan still led it to half. And we go, okay, I think that's probably it for UConn. And give them credit, they played, I think, as well as they could. They tried to hold Michigan down. Again, that's a team that scores about 90 points a game, and they did hold them to under 70. So UConn really did a lot in their power to try and keep themselves in that game. Obviously, Michigan wins the national championship, and here is a little bit of sound from both teams.
When you bring a group this talented together, and they decide from the beginning that they're going to do it this way, and they never waver and they never change. That's probably the most uncommon thing in athletics now, and it's a tribute to their character, but also those in their circles around them, their coaches, their parents, their mentors. They allowed these guys to give themselves up for the group, and it's never guaranteed, but for these guys to cut down the nets after all they sacrifice is pretty special.
I mean, they're legit. I mean, they're definitely, deserve to win the national championship. They're clearly the best team in the country this year. They're just so hard to score against at the rim. I could talk about the threes that we missed, and I thought we had a lot of good threes that we missed, but they just made it so tough on us around the rim.
There you hear it from Danny Hurley himself. That's an incredible basketball team, and it's just, what are you going to do?
He's putting on his best Bill Belichick there on the sound bites. A couple of other Aztecs connections here on this game. Jake, is it Dusty May?
Dusty May, the old FAU coach, which is where you're headed, right?
Yeah, that's where I was headed. He was the head coach of Florida Atlantic, who the Aztecs beat in the Final Four back in 2023 for state to advance to the championship game against UConn. And then also, obviously, Michigan's last national championship, only other national championship, was 1989, and the head coach of that team was Steve Fisher, and Brian Dutcher was an assistant of that Michigan team. I had forgotten that was before the final, but that was before the Fab Five came in. So 89, Steve Fisher wins it as an interim coach, and then 2-3 years later was when the Fab Five came in, that Fisher and Dutcher had just done an amazing job of recruiting. But yeah, so it's always kind of fun to see Michigan do well in the trail of the Dutcher and Fisher time.
Yeah, it's funny, the connections, and huge props to Dusty May. I mean, this is a guy that took an FAU team that I don't think a lot of people thought was going to go deep to the Final Four, and then I think only 2 years into his Michigan tenure wins them a national championship. So very impressive stuff from Dusty May. Over on the women's side of the bracket, this one shocked me. Now, John, I know you had called UCLA. You had done some stories on UCLA and the women. I thought whoever won that South Carolina-UConn game, it was going to be a wrap, and they were going to blow out whoever won the Texas-UCLA game. Well, not only was I dead wrong about that, I was dead wrong about who won the UConn SC game, because impressive by Don Staley and the Gamecocks. They beat Gino Auriemma and UConn. But then UCLA goes, and they pretty much handled USC in this game, John. They
absolutely did. And Lauren Best there, I was going to say the big man, but she's the big lady. Dominant player, and did an amazing job. And in the couple of stories that I did on the UCLA women, forgive me for not remembering the player's name, but it was basically the sixth woman coming off the bench, where she was expected to be a starter. But she realized that it was going to be better for the team for her to come off the bench. And there was a lot of talk in the post-game interviews from their Final Four win of how this team is selfless, and they put values first as opposed to individual performance first. And so that's why I was, kind of high on the Lady Bruins going in, and they knocked off Texas. And when they knocked off Texas, then the road was clear. We all thought they were going to then play UConn, but then UConn had lost to South Carolina. And when I realized, they don't have to play UConn now, even more, I thought that the Lady Bruins would go in, and they did dominate, and it was impressive to watch what they did. A very talented basketball team, the Lady Bruins are.
And you talk about that camaraderie, that closeness. Well, you perfectly set up this.
Because there's a lot of times where we wondered if it could be true. I said I wanted to find uncommon, courageous women that were willing to make uncommon choices that maybe possibly could yield an uncommon result. And today it did.
What an amazing way to finish off the season with a national championship, and knowing that we did everything to, get there basketball-wise, and we also just enjoyed each other. And, we're such a close group of girls, and I'm going to miss them so much. I'm not even going to get into that. But, it's crazy.
A couple of other things about that, Jake. That Bruins team had some nice revenge motivation as well. Their only loss all season long was to Texas, and they played Texas in the Final Four, so they wanted to avenge that loss from earlier in the season. And then a year ago, They got smoked by UConn. I think it was by 34 or 23. They just got their clocks cleaned in the Final Four last year to UConn. So they came in motivated to knock off Texas because of their lone loss, and then to avenge that UConn loss last year in the Final Four. They were a motivated team.
Very impressive. Congratulations to UCLA on the women's side and Michigan on the men's side for their national championships. We move from the hardwood to the links. It is Masters Week at Augusta National. Take the drive up Magnolia Lane. Here we go. A year ago, one of the most historic Masters where Rory McIlroy completes his career Grand Slam after however many years of being just that green jacket short of the career Grand Slam. John, your excitement for getting to watch the Masters as always, and anybody you got your eye on going into this tournament?
Yeah, absolutely. I love the Masters, and I talked about it the other night on CBS 8 News. What I love about the Masters is that it's played at the same course every year. The other majors are played at different courses, and they rotate. And what I love about Augusta National is that when you watch it year after year, after about 5, 6, 7, 8 years, you start to learn the course as you watch as a viewer, especially the back nine. And I it is total bucket list item for me to go to Augusta National and watch one of these years because I know the course now. And so do these players. And these players just fall in love with the atmosphere and the flora and the fauna. And it's not a huge, as Rory McIlroy talked about, it's not a large field, but it is an incredibly strong field. And there's 90 guys that know how to play this course, are familiar with it. And I think it shapes up to be another great week. And, of course, you can see it on CBS.
Yeah, and there's some great golfers, of course. A couple guys to keep an eye on would be the local guys with Xander Schauffele and J.J. Spahn, Scotty Scheffler, who seems to always play well at the Masters, Rory, of course, trying to defend his title. A couple of guys I like. You're looking at Brooks Koepka right there. Other guys like Cam Young. And so we'll see what shapes up. It always seems to be fun, interesting, great storylines. You talk about the traditions from Augusta National and the Masters itself. One of the other great traditions that most folks know about is that the previous champion has a champions dinner where before the tournament, all the champions get together and they share a meal made by the last champion. So in this situation, it was Rory McIlroy setting the menu. Now, we've seen fun menus like Tiger Woods used to do, chicken tenders and hamburgers, and we've seen some other kind of wild things. And it was something that was hilarious that Rory was asked about in his press conference leading up to the tournament. And I'll kind of let him explain why his menu looks the way it does.
I was trying to achieve something that I would enjoy, but also and ties back to experiences that I've had, but also wanted it to be something that all the other people in that room would enjoy as well. People keep asking me, why didn't you go more Irish? And I say, because I want to enjoy the dinner as well.
I guess he's not a huge fan of the Irish cuisine, huh?
Although I do know, I had read earlier when he announced what the menu was going to be, one of the items on the menu was a recipe of his mother's. I'm not sure which item that was, but that was pretty cool because it was going to have both Irish and family flavor to it.
Definitely have a touch in there, but I know he said he didn't want to go too heavy Irish because of that reasoning. So we'll see Masters Week. Very exciting. Tees off starting this Thursday, obviously running through Sunday. We'll keep on moving here. We got to talk a little bit of soccer. We're San Diego FC. Hey, I mentioned it last time I was out at their training. They kind of slowed down a little bit. Before going into this match against San Jose, they had a draw. Then they lost in the CONCACAF Champions Cup to Toluca. Then they had another draw. And then they kind of just got their brakes beaten off against San Jose. Another red card for SDFC. It feels like that hot start to the year and how much work they had to put into that start is starting to catch up with the Azul and Chrome a little bit, John.
It is. And the thing is, because, Jake, I do look at things like a glass half full, you do know that I am Mr. Optimistic.
I have learned it about 10 minutes ago.
Yes, that hot start is fading. They've now, in the MLS, have 2 draws and a loss, so that they've softened a little bit. However, the strong start is still lingering. They actually have more standings points right now than they did a year ago at this point in the season. Have they played 5 matches? I'm not certain. But they have more standings points now than they did after this number of games last year. And we know what they did last year. They went on and won the Western Conference and made a deep playoff run. So no need to worry, although 2 draws and now a loss, and it was a 3-0 loss, kind of got their rear ends handed to them. It is time to say, okay, something's got to change. And the other big thing is they've got 5 red cards. And last year they had 3 red cards all season long. So what's up with the lack of discipline? I don't think that's Mikey Varas. Mikey has got great philosophy and great control of his team, but 5 red cards has been a surprise this early in the season.
No doubt about it, and it's definitely been challenging for SDFC to get past some of those. You saw it a couple of times where they were able to overcome it. That Toluca match, the first one here in San Diego, they played almost the entire match down a man, ended up winning that impressively. But you can only, weather that storm for so long before it catches up with you. And again, I think between those red cards, between the really fast pace beginning to the year, it's just finally caught up to SDFC a little bit. I was hoping coming off that bye week before going to San Jose that they'd be a little bit reset, rested, but that's also a tough place to play. San Jose's a great team. It's a really worthy Western Conference opponent. You're on the road. It wasn't impressive at all, right? It wasn't like, there was a great fight. It was a 3-0 kind of domination plus the red card like we mentioned. So hoping to see a little bit better performance at least.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I did not get to see the game that they played up in San Jose. But when you're coming off a bye week, we all thought, well rested. We'd be anxious to get back out there. Maybe they came out a little bit flat, but they get the other red card. And then, bam, now you're playing a man down, and that's just too much of an advantage, especially when you're playing on the road.
Yeah, and a team that's not flat right now would be in the NWSL, the San Diego Wave. We mentioned this last week. They lost their first match to Houston. Since then, a 2-1 victory, a 3-1 victory, a 2-0 victory, and now a 1-0 victory in Boston. I mean, this team is the definition of red hot. It's been a lot of fun to watch. We touched on this a bunch when Karthik was here last week, just about how much fun this team has been too. I thought getting that 1-0 win on the road in Boston was really, really fun to see. And then on top of that, they get to now face the new Denver team, Denver Summit, on Saturday. So it's just been really quality play from the Wave.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens here. And the thing about the San Diego Wave, they've only been around for 4 or 5 years. And I was really fearing for them that when San Diego FC came in on the men's side, MLS, you can't really get much higher level than that. I really thought maybe the interest in the Wave would die down. But now all of a sudden, here they are playing as dominant as they are. I mean, those matches are can't miss. You want to go out and watch those, or at least watch them on TV. This year, the San Diego Wave off to a red-hot start. A lot of fun to watch them.
Yeah, like I mentioned, they'll face that new expansion team out there in Colorado Saturday and try and keep that win streak rolling, try and get it up to 5 victories for the San Diego Wave. All right, that's it for us here on the Final Quarter on the CBS 8 app. When we come back next week, we'll have a better scope of the Padres. We'll have an even bigger sample size for us to complain about, huh, John?
Absolutely correct. And if you're going to give me a final comment, I'm picking Xander Schauffele in the Masters.
He always loves his Aztecs. I can get behind that. He goes with Xander Schauffele. I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say Akshay Bhatia wins the Masters. We'll see you next week. Take care, everybody.